Hi, my name's Phil. I'd like to talk about politics in this video as Starmer announces the timetable for boosting defence spending to 3% of GDP. I'd like to discuss why this was so necessary and urgent, why he had to announce it this week, it will not have been his original plan, what the concerns are about the way it's been funded, but also how he completely shot down the GB News hack who tried to promote Nigel Farage's non-role while he was at it. Starmer completely shot him down, and Farage at the same time. He should do that more often. But first, for daily political commentary, please hit the subscribe button to stay notified. So yesterday, Keir Starmer, big announcement. He announced his timetable for raising defence spending to, first of all, 2.5%, then 3% of GDP. The first step to be funded by a cut to the international development budget. Very much a case of robbing Peter to pay Paul, but I'll discuss that later. As he made his announcement, journalists at the press conference, of course, asked questions, including Christopher Hope of GB News. Now, before going over what happened, it's worth pointing out, after various members of the American government attacked Europe over free speech, Keir Starmer not only had someone from GB News at his press conference, the most biased and least professional news outlet in the country, but took what he knew would be a pointless bad faith question from them. Compare this with these so-called free speech champions in the White House who have been excluding any journalists from Trump's press conference if they won't sign up to his delusions, and has been ordering government departments to cancel subscriptions to certain news outlets as well. I don't think Europe needs to take lessons from MAGA on free speech, frankly.
Prime Minister Christopher Hope from GB News. In July, Reform UK fought the election on a policy to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027 and 3% of GDP after 2030, funded by a £6 billion saving in the aid budget. You said you'll do similar. You'll increase defence spending to 2.5% by 2027, 3% after 2030, funded by a £6 billion cut in the aid budget. Are you Nigel Farage in disguise?
Nigel Farage didn't even turn up to the debate in Parliament today. Nigel Farage is fawning over Putin. That's not patriotism. That is not what working people need. What I've done is take the duty of Prime Minister seriously.
And that's the point worth repeating about Farage not even being at the debate. See, right now, Reform UK are trying to claim credit for this announcement. Oh, he's only did it because of us. What, you? All right. A party of 5 MPs who don't even turn up to a debate obviously has no role in the defence boost from the party of over 400 MPs who led the debate. And this keeps happening. Reform UK tried to ride in Musk's slipstream on Twitter over grooming gangs, start of the year, if you remember. They didn't actually attend the debate in Parliament on it. Also note that now that Musk is bored with that subject, so are they. You know, every morning they must get up. Oh, what does Elon want us to talk about today? They want to lead the country. Then they pretended to care about immigration. They always do that. That's their favourite subject. Well, we've had debates on immigration policy in Parliament as well. They didn't turn up to those either. Then they claim to care about ordinary working people. Well, we've had debates on Labour's workers' rights law. Reform UK MPs all voted against them, but they didn't turn up to the debate. And now this. Farage claims to care about defence and the military, but yet again, didn't turn up to the debate. Nigel Farage does all his talking on GB News and social media. He turns up to PMQ so that he can clip himself and throw that around social media for the rest of the week. But he doesn't really turn up to actual debates very often. He's not shaking things up. He's not even been as effective as equally small parties in Parliament. He's just making more noise outside Westminster to distract his supporters from the fact he's not doing anything. But there's another point to discuss. Hope claimed that Farage said, it was Reform UK policy who said they would boost defence spending with cuts to foreign aid. And in the short term, that is what we're doing. However, it is still Labour policy to boost international aid to 0.7% of GDP in line with their manifesto promise as soon as fiscal rules allow. Which means that come the end of this Parliament, if the economy does well, we will be spending 0.7% of GDP on international aid. And we won't have at all followed the Reform UK policy. Now, I will still say I'm disappointed to hear that we're cutting international aid. I do accept there are a few bits of context that people need to be aware of. I accept that Labour have said this doesn't necessarily mean actual cuts to international aid programmes. If that sounds really weird, bear in mind that the Tories not only cut international aid themselves, but they started to classify asylum projects in the UK as international aid. So actually quite a lot of our international aid budget right now is being spent inside the UK on asylum seeker accommodation, not actually on international aid. So Labour aim to make those savings from not having to spend as much on asylum accommodation as they cut the backlog by processing claims properly. Mind you, they weren't confident that all the savings could be made this way, so some genuine programmes could be cut, which I'm not happy about. Let me just explain why. So again, take morality out of it, because that's subjective. No point in arguing that with people who don't agree with you. International aid is not charity. Some people like the charitable angle, sure, but that's not why it exists. It exists entirely for national interest. All government spending is ultimately quite hard-nosed and self-interested. International aid is used to help stabilise parts of the world under extreme pressure from either environmental disasters or political dickheads. Failure to spend the money, first of all, damages trade routes. You're going to increase the instability of trade routes. That obviously hurts the economy. And it increases the chances of more refugee crises. And the very people who complain about international aid are the first to complain about refugees asking for asylum. It also brings soft power to the country who spends it. Labour were making this clear yesterday. So they were bigging up international aid. They weren't saying, oh yeah, we don't really need it. You know, when they were saying how much they regretted the decision and why it is still their policy to get it back up to 0.7% when they can. Worth pointing out, however, that the international aid for environment programmes, that is being ring-fenced. So those aren't going to be touched. But still, if this ends up being a long-term arrangement, because the economy doesn't grow as they hope, ironically, we're going to be spending more money to try to counter Russia in Europe, which we do need, but potentially cutting the money we used to fight him in Africa, where he is deliberately driving refugees into Europe to cause political instability here, so robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I would like to know why the alternatives were not viable. I accept they may not have been. I did talk about the options at the weekend, and I talked about the downsides of each one. There was no obvious answer. Some people at the moment are banning, oh, we should just do this, just do this. No, they all come with massive political downsides, sometimes economic downsides. It's possible Labour opted for this because right now it was the only one where there were no political downsides. It doesn't definitely mean cuts to foreign aid programmes. It probably will, though. It might be very short term if the economic headwinds are avoided. And international aid is not considered a big deal by a lot of swing voters. Some even resent it because they don't understand what it's for. But one thing I do know, this announcement did have to be made now. Starmer didn't want to. If it weren't for Trump potentially turning America from friend to enemy, it would have made no sense to announce an increase in the defence budget before the strategic spending review had even been concluded. After all, Starmer has now announced an increase in defence spending. But if you ask him what it will be spent on, he would have to go, because, you know, so we're assigning a budget before we even know what we need to spend. Like, that'd be mad normally. But it was a necessary step for two massive reasons. The first is we're trying to avoid having America leave Europe over a recklessly short time frame. Trump is meeting with Starmer later this week. You know, we don't want to happen in Europe what happened in Afghanistan. By promising to shoulder more of the burden, we can't get America to recommit to Europe. That ship has sailed. It's very, very obvious Trump's not going to do that. But we are going to try and manage a transition. The second reason is that if even this is fruitless, and it might be because Putin seems to have complete control of Trump, we might actually need defences now. Russia directly attacking the UK is not some hypothetical threat. They've already done it. They've launched attacks on the UK as well as other European countries, just not with tanks yet. But they don't do that. That's not how they operate until they're so confident that they can do that. It's been with Russian-funded terror attacks and poisonings. But Russia has been at war with the whole of Europe for a long time. It's just got the United States to surrender, which means it can now start to divert more resources into Europe. We haven't been responding up till now. But if he starts cutting undersea internet or power cables, we're buggered. Funding major terror attacks in Britain, we're buggered. Cyber attacks on our energy and communications. Or all of the above at once. We won't have time to respond then if we're not ready for it. And Putin doesn't just want a bit of Ukraine. He doesn't even just want the whole of Ukraine. Even as his invasion was faltering, he was still openly, confidently talking about a Russian empire which spread across the continent. And if America doesn't help, Europe needs to become very strong very quickly. And worse still, if America actively helps Russia out with, say, I mean, they're not going to do it in the battlefield, but with intelligence, we really are in a race against time. And there we are. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you've enjoyed the video, please click the like button and subscribe for further content. If you'd like to support the channel further, click the join button for memberships. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.